And just like that, book is closed. So Arcane is easily one of the best shows that Netflix has ever made, and easily one of the best shows running in general in recent years. And gotta say, I love that first season. I've seen it twice. I own it on 4K in a beautiful limited edition steelbook. And it's just such an incredible show, unlike anything I've ever seen before. And so the anticipation for season 2 was unbelievably high, and honestly for a while there it was petering out because we didn't know when it was going to come out. Finally, that 3-year hiatus has been broken with season 2's arrival on Netflix this month, and man, was it incredibly mind-blowing. Starting out with the obvious, the animation yet again is so freaking beautiful. I mean, there is just every single frame of this show you could just hang on a wall as its own individual art piece. They put so much time and care into everything in this show. It is incredibly impressive. And they get a little experimentative with some of the animation styles. They're playing with frame rates. They're doing a bunch of watercolor stuff. They're doing all these different things in here just to make it stand out a little bit more, just because they can, probably because they had more time to work on it. I mean, I don't know how long it took to make season 1, but I know for a fact they had about 3 years to get this one done, and I guess they used every second they possibly could. Narratively, I'm glad that things picked up immediately where they left off. I was not going to appreciate a time jump or any of that. No, starting right the second after Jinx sends the rocket right into the tower, we pick up with the aftermath in the rubble, who lived, who died, who blew up, who didn't, and that was the best way to kick off this season. Narratively, they had a lot of characters to balance here between Jace and Victor and Jinx and Vi and Caitlyn and Mel and just so many other characters I can name off the top of my head, but they all have their own respective roles to play in this overall story, their own paths that are kind of splitting off, but then will eventually converge in the finale. And that's what I love to see. I loved how everything basically came to a head and there wasn't really any loose ends or red herrings. They tried to wrap it up as best they could by the end of this season. In terms of the voice cast, again, all around, they did a great job. If you like the talent they employed for the first season, you get more of that here and it's not going to disappoint you. And much like the first season had, this season has a great selection of songs that fit very well with a lot of the scenes that they're used in. Netflix delivered this season in 3 acts, as they called it. They dropped 3 episodes per week for 3 weeks. And I would say that the first week really got me in. The second week is where I think it peaked and I was blown away by what was happening narratively. And the third act, while I still enjoyed it and was still really invested in the show, I do think that it was probably the weakest part of this season. I think it was mainly just the finale and the way they kind of closed things out didn't really pack as much of a punch as I expected from something that was, bookending the story and never coming back to again. I feel like maybe there was something where the punches were pulled because it was conflicting with canon. I've never played League of Legends. I don't know anything about the game whatsoever. So I have no idea what the lore is, if this is canon, if it's impacting characters involved in the game in any capacity. I really don't know. I was just taking this show as its own thing. Games removed, I don't care. If there's games that inspired this show, then cool, awesome. I'm none the wiser. I don't know anything about these characters outside of what happens in this Netflix series. And if you're telling me that the reason events went in this show were to accommodate what was happening in the games that I've never played, have no interest in playing, and probably will never play, then that kind of bums me out and neuters this show in a way. And I know that's kind of a hypocritical thing for me to say because I'm a pretty big stickler for source material and continuity and stuff like that and making sure things blend well. But with a game like League of Legends, as I understand it, it's not a very narrative-based story, so a lot of the lore out there is just, whatever has been confirmed by the developers and by Riot Games and all that stuff. And I feel like you could have had the opportunity to cement a few things in this show and then maybe the games could work around that. But Who knows what I don't know. I don't have any frame of reference, so maybe I'm just talking out of my butt right now. That said, any complaints I lob at this season, I feel like are more nitpicks as opposed to actual genuine problems I had. I loved this season. I really enjoyed it start to finish. And even though it wasn't quite as powerful or mind-blowing to me as season 1 was, I still think that this was really great. And the fact that, you know, we have these two incredible seasons of storytelling, games removed, I love that. I'm so happy that we have this show. And so while I do have some criticisms that I'm about to talk about, I don't really feel like it's enough to make me say like, yeah, this was mediocre. Yeah, this totally sucked. It's just more so a chip away at the perfection. For example, I love how they explored the relationship between Vi and Jinx. These are like my two favorite characters in this show, especially Jinx, because she's just so wild and so cool. And so getting to see more of them together was really neat. I loved how Caitlyn was, you know, leading her own squad of enforcers, and Vi joined up at one point. Like, that was a really cool concept in the show. I really enjoyed that concept, but I do feel like it was kind of cut short. And so I guess I'm going to get into some slight spoilers right now. So, cool. Notice the background just changed? Okay, when that comes back to normal, then you'll know that it's spoiler-free time and you can come back to this video and listen to me talk some more. But again, this isn't going to be me talking about anything huge, just some slight things here and there. I'll get into major spoilers later, but for now, you know, you might want to just mute me or skip ahead in the video if you haven't seen the show yet. So like, Caitlyn was obviously leading her own squad of enforcers, and that was really cool, but I feel like it should have lasted more than one episode. I didn't really like that Vi and the team kind of broke off at the end of it, and you never really saw them again as a unit until the finale, really. And by then it felt like it was kind of just strung together at the last second. I really wish they could have like had this be the focus for Vi and Caitlyn's dynamic in the show, was being part of a team for the majority of the story. I just think that would have been a lot cooler. I don't know. I'm a sucker for a good team up story and having different people with unique talents on an operating force together. It's why I love the Avengers so much. But it does feel like a lot of these episodes introduce a lot of cool story beats or concepts, but they don't really stick around all that much. And I think a prime example of this would be episode 7, where we follow Echo, but he's not even in the main continuity. He's in some Elseworlds. And while this Elseworlds was a really interesting idea, and him like navigating through it and dealing with everything he's experienced in the main timeline and being in this separate universe, just messing with his head, that was a really cool, interesting idea. But that's something that you would throw into like a 20 episode season in like season 3, I would say. You know, like, I don't know. It just feels weird how we have a 9 episode season here. This is closing out the show for good. And one of these episodes is solely dedicated to a vacuum bottle episode that has nothing to do with the overall arc of the actual season, aside from, I guess, the very end of that episode. I kind of wish they hadn't wasted all that time and could have done a little bit more with Vi and Jinx in the main timeline. It was a unique little adventure with Echo, and he got a good amount of like character development, I guess, but it just was weird because everything else with all those other characters, aside from, I guess, Heimerdinger, it didn't really do much for them because it didn't matter, because it wasn't that version that we're familiar with. Also, there's just inconsistencies with Jinx at times. She's my favorite character, like I said, but there's one episode where she starts out after she's started her following indirectly, and she makes it sound like she's done being Jinx, she's given up the calling, and doesn't want anything to do with it anymore. And that's unfortunate because it doesn't last. You know, she immediately goes back to being Jinx, so I don't know what the point of that claim was at the start. And I know there's a couple of time skips throughout this season in between the acts and whatnot, but that was just a choice that I didn't really think was all that necessary, and kind of just regressed her character back just so they could do something with her in that episode. All right, I think we're good now. Yep. See that? Okay, you're good. No spoilers for now. I just want to say I do think that the majority of these episodes are structured really well. I was engaged start to finish. I love this season. I just didn't love it as much as I loved the first season, which was absolutely incredible to me and genuinely left me with my jaw on the floor. It's still 100 times better than most of the other stuff that Netflix has put out recently. Like that 90s show. Like, I know I'm bringing up a couple of points of criticism, but by no means do I think this sucks or that it's just not worth watching in any form. I think this is an incredible season. But now I do want to slip into the bigger spoilers. These are a little bit more explicit with the details, talk about what happens toward the end of the series as well. So this is coming back, and yeah, you're just gonna want to skip to the end of the video. Once this goes back to normal, back to the movie man cave, then, you know, you'll be safe. But for now, while this is up, and if you haven't seen the show yet, then I highly suggest just skipping to the end of this video. Or, you know, the more sensible thing would be to watch the show and then come back and listen to what I had to say, because I cannot recommend Arcane as a show enough. If you haven't seen season 1 yet, get on it right now and then watch season 2, come back and listen to what I have to say. But okay, moving on. I didn't think that Vi and Caitlyn hooking up was all that necessary. Like, I'm not trying to go on some homophobic tangent or anything. That's not the point of what I'm about to say. It's just that they were obviously, you know, like heading down a romantic path in terms of like their character progression and everything. I thought that was pretty obvious from the first season, and then when they actually paid it off in this season, I was like, yeah, okay, I expected that. But it was just so weird that this moment came when it did. It was in a prison cell, no less. But I was watching Moist Critical talk about this season overall, and he pointed out that it was really weird that this moment came right after Vi was locked in the cell by Jinx, because Vi was trying to get Jinx out of that cell. Jinx psyched her out, locked her in the cell, and then ran off, presumably to do something destructive or to off herself. And Vi is freaking out inside the cell because she can't do anything. And then when Caitlyn comes in to unlock the door, why wouldn't she just take off full speed ahead to go check on Jinx and make sure she didn't do anything bad? Instead, she just, well, you know. And also, just from a personal standpoint, I'm not a fan of gratuitous sexuality in media, and I feel like this scene went on a little bit longer than it needed to. Honestly, I think you could have done a lot more with an implication.
Because of the implication.
Than actually, you know, showcasing it. I mean, this is TV-14, and they're pushing the boundaries of TV-14 with some of the stuff they were going with in this show. I feel like this wasn't all that important to showcase on screen, but man, did the people on Serialized have a field day with this stuff. It seemed to be the only thing they were talking about in the reviews of this episode. So when looking at the finale, things felt a little rushed to me. I mean, obviously, like I said, you got a bunch of characters and all their narratives coming to a head. I think Jace and Victor had the best payoff for their story. The way that they basically, you know, went out in style after being consumed by the very thing that they were using to help people in a way. Mel's story was really interesting. I liked what they were doing earlier in the season where she was like in that void caused by the Black Rose and everything. If I'm not mistaken, that's what it was called. Black Rose? Yeah, something like that. Then when she, you know, like basically becomes a X-Men, but the way she was able to, you know, use the Black Rose to take down her mother, I was like, oh man, that was a sick twist right there. But then immediately spun it around to take out the Black Rose. And then her mom just kind of is like, well, I guess I'll die now. That was a little weird. Felt a little rushed, and not really explaining a whole lot that was going on in that situation. But whatever. It happened. Not the worst thing, but certainly could have been delivered a little bit better, I think. I think the best twist came in the form of Vander's return. I didn't expect that at all, and I thought that was incredible. I was really, really happy to see what they were able to do with him and Jinx and Vi in those moments. That was probably my favorite part of the entire show. And I was really bummed that we didn't get a full-on redemption for him by the end of the season. Instead, we have him, you know, basically just going full beast mode. Vi showing down with him at one point, and then Jinx jumps in to save her and blows herself up in a sacrificial way and all that, and takes him down with her. And it was a felt seen, I guess, but it was also kind of redundant in a way and not all that satisfying. I really was hoping that we could have gotten Vander to snap back to who he really was before and not have to go out as this monster. Jinx's conclusion, I mean, it works for her, but it doesn't really work for Vander. But again, like I said, it feels really redundant considering we just saw Isha do the same thing at the end of Act 2. Again, setting off a bomb to stop Vander from hurting everyone. And so it almost felt like it wasn't even her kind of move to go out like that. And so it just felt a little weird for Jinx to do that too. I don't know. I just felt like it was a little unnecessary to go that route. I felt like there was a better way that they could have executed that, but whatever. Maybe I'm just in denial. I had to watch my girl Jinx die. And man, at the very ending, that parallel for Echo, man, that poor kid. That hurts. Okay. We're back. So if you didn't hear any of the spoiler stuff, you're free now, you're good, you can watch the rest of the video. Overall, like I said, I loved way more of this season than I didn't like, and I still can't recommend this show enough. If you have not seen Arcane, please go and watch it. It is such a great show. 18 episodes, all 40 minutes. I think the last episode might be 50, but doable. You can binge that in a weekend. I certainly could if I wanted to. Okay, so let's speed run some scores. Episode 1 and 2, I'm going to give that a 9. Episodes 3, 4, 8, and 9, I'm going to give an 8. Episode 7, I'm going to swear, not on purpose, 7 out of 10. And episodes 5 and 6, my favorites of the season. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Yeah, glad we're on the same page. And if you do the math and average all those together for a final score for the season overall, then, well, you get a 9. And like I said before, if I was ranking these acts by how much I enjoyed them, that would go Act 2, number 1, Act 1 in the middle, and Act 3 in last. Again, liked all of them, but I think this is the order of how strong I think each of these were in terms of story, characters, all that business. So Arcane, Season 2 is the end of the show. They're not continuing the story. They might make a spinoff, who knows, but this is all we got for now. So please, in the comments down below, let me know, did you think Season 1 was better than 2, 2 better than 1, both on the same platform, or did you not even care for the show at all? I would love to hear what you have to say in the comments below, but of course, just please, be respectful about this. This is just a show after all, not the most important thing in the world. You don't have to go at each other's throats over it. And if you're going to leave a comment, you might as well leave a like as well. And I mean, come on, who's going to comment and like without subscribing? Only idiots, right? And then if you're going to subscribe, you might as well hit the bell so you know when I'm posting new videos. Because like, why wouldn't you? And as an additional challenge, again, free, no charge, you can go to the description and follow me on all 4 of my socials, where you can find me on Instagram, Letterboxd, Serialized, and GG, where I post movie reviews, TV show reviews, and video game reviews. And not all those reviews make it onto this channel, so if you don't want to be waiting around for me to edit a video each time you want to know my thoughts on a movie, TV show, or video game, then you can go to all those platforms and find reviews for tons of other stuff that I have never talked about on this show. And keep in mind, I review literally everything I watch, even if I've seen it 100 times before. I'm going to write a new review for it, whether it's just a quote or something. I'm keeping people updated with what I'm doing just because it's fun for me. I love logging stuff on Letterboxd, on Serialized, and GG. So please give me a follow on all those platforms if you want to and you want to stay up to date with stuff that I'm doing. Otherwise, until next time, guys, God be with you. Take care.